Hello Rayclast, welcome to the Path of Exile build guide for my version of a dancing Dervish Occultist. This was essentially my league starter for the league, as I ditched the build I was initially playing on day 1 to do this instead after discovering how cheap it was to get into it. This will be an unscripted one, so bear with me. First thing I want to mention is that there will be 2 Path of Building links in the video description for this video. One is for the super cheapo budget version that is Life ES Hybrid that I started with and cleared everything up to and including the Searing Exarch for about 20 chaos. And the other one is the current setup that I'm using, which is a chaos inoculation setup with 2 big cluster jewels that is much more expensive and currently has about 25 exalts invested into it. I will also put some helpful information in the notes section of the more expensive Path of Building, so be sure to check that out if there is anything that I miss here in this video guide. As you can see, there is some map footage in the background of a nice juicy map, and that is definitely where this character shines. It is one of the smoothest, nicest map clearing characters I've ever played. Clears very fast and relatively safely once I eventually did sort the defenses on the character out. As far as pros goes, the character is relatively squishy in terms of boss level damage, so there are definitely some things you need to avoid, which I'll talk a little bit more about when I am showing off the passives and the Atlas passive tree that I'm using. But it does do okay on the big bosses that are just single bosses, and it does okay if you just make sure you roll your boss maps pretty peachy. Pros, as I mentioned, the build is very cheap to get into, but does have a nice high ceiling for investing a lot into it if you want to, or you can just leave it with almost nothing invested and blast through mid-tier maps super fast. I'll just let a little more of this clear play, and then I will come back and we'll be in my hideout and I'll talk you through all the things that this character's using. And then at the end of the video there will be a couple boss kills that I'll put there, just to show you how it does on bosses, even though this character is definitely a mapping focused character. Alright guys, welcome back. I will do my best to try and cover everything here, but again, make sure to check out those Path of Buildings if you are confused about anything. We will start by looking at the passive tree on this character. So, as you can see, we are using 2 large cluster jewel setups. We path out through the energy shield and minion damage stuff, grab more ES here, and go out to the side. We use Wicked Ward to make sure that our energy shield will not be interrupted if we can just get a second or 2 to get it started. We grab Essence Surge, and over here we also grab Essence Infusion to make sure it gets started more quickly. Grab Ravenous Horde, really strong minion wheel, and we are using 2 different minion masteries. One of them is minions penetrating 8% of cursed enemies' Ellie resistance, because we are using Triad Grips to convert 100% of our damage to cold. And the other one we are using is minions have 100% increased critical strike chance because we are going crit, and we get pretty close to reaching crit cap on our dancing dervishes with everything combined. Over here we grab the influence wheel, and over on the left we grab the sovereignty wheel because we are running lots of auras and we need to get as much reservation efficiency and stuff as possible and boost up their effectiveness. For aura masteries, we're just using the typical 15% reservation efficiency of skills that pretty much anyone using auras is going to be using. We grab this nice minion wheel down here. Don't worry about the back of it because your minion damage applying to you is pointless on this build. We grab the couple nodes here for Faith and Steel. It gives nice energy shield, armor, and all res. And we really like this mastery here that gives us defend with 120% of armor while not on low energy shield. During mapping, you should pretty much never be on low energy shield, so this is basically making our armor more than twice as effective as it would otherwise be. For curse stuff, we grab this curse AoE wheel. This makes our curse AoE cover just about the whole screen, which is really nice for keeping us safe by cursing everything with temp chains, and it makes it so our pops from Profane Bloom will spread really far. Over here we grab this one that just gives some nice curse effectiveness, and it gives us the second curse mastery. For one curse mastery, we're using 30% increased mana reservation. That lets us fit everything in just barely. And for the other one, we are using the enemies you are cursed are hindered with 15% reduced move speed. Stacked on top of temp chains, this makes it so enemies really don't move at all. Also grab the little specter wheel here so we can get a third specter, and it's just some nice little damage nodes as well. Make sure you grab all the energy shield stuff you're next to as well. Insightfulness, we grab the unnatural calm wheel here. For energy shield mastery, we have the discipline has 25% increased mana reservation efficiency, and I decided to grab the 2% energy shield regen. Alright, now into the cluster jewel setups, which is where things get a little interesting. Unfortunately, this is where a lot of the expense in this expensive version of the build is going to be, because you need some very specific cluster jewels that at the time of recording this video are around 5 exalts apiece. So, you need cluster jewels that have Vicious Bite, Renewal, and Rotten Claws, or Raise and Pillage. Make sure you check the path of building and get cluster jewels that have either Rotten Claws or Raise and Pillage for the third on top of Vicious Bite. If you get any of the other skills, it will move either Vicious Bite or Renewal to the back and one of those other skills to the front, which you do not want. If you get jewels like this, then you only need to put 5 points into each large cluster jewel, because the one you don't really want is on the back, so you don't have to invest points to get back into there, you can just do 5. For the medium cluster jewels, we're essentially using 4 of the same jewel, and that is just a medium cluster jewel that has 4 passive skills, and one of the allocated skills is Renewal. Doesn't matter what the other one is, as you can see we're not taking it on either side. We just want Renewal for that minions have 5% chance to deal double damage. Your dancing dervishes do have life, but they are essentially invulnerable, so they will always be on full health. So between the 2 cluster jewel setups, we have 6 renewal nodes, so that gives us 30% chance for our dervishes to do double damage, which is essentially 30% more damage. For your small cluster jewels, we're using 2 of them. One of them is Uncompromising, which gives a big reservation efficiency boost to Determination. The other is Spiritual Presence, which gives a big reservation boost to Hatred. These are important for being able to fit everything in, and getting that Determination in is crucial for scaling into high tier maps and not dying every 2 seconds when physical mobs hit you. Over on the other side here, we are using 2 of the fancy new jewels. I guess I never mentioned we're grabbing Chaos Inoculation, but that should be obvious while you're over here. We're using 2 of the fancy new jewels, the Forbidden Flame and Forbidden Flesh, and we're using that to get Bone Barrier from the Necromancer. This gives us a nice extra bit of mitigation, gives our minions more life so our Spectres and Animate Guardian don't die, and it gives us the Bone Armor skill, which again is extra tankiness, and on top of all that we also get some extra energy shield recovery. This isn't mandatory. These ones aren't super expensive. As far as I can tell, they're about mid-tier on the Forbidden Flesh, Forbidden Flame jewels. I think I paid like 3 and 4 exalts for them, so 7 exalts together, and I imagine they'll probably get a little cheaper. I will mention at this point that there is a somewhat annoying bug that I have reported on the bug reports forum, and that is, if you tie Bone Armor to your left click, which I think is pretty much where you want it, so it's just auto-activating as you're running around in maps. Unfortunately, when it is granted to you by these jewels, rather than being an actual necromancer, it will unbind every time you go through a loading screen. So every time you go and do a new map, you have to come here and repick Bone Armor to start the map. So that's pretty annoying. Hopefully that gets fixed soon, but it's something to keep in mind if it is something that is going to be too annoying to you when you are considering buying these jewels. That pretty well does it for the regular passives. For our Ascendancy, when you were leveling, I recommend just getting Profane Bloom right away. Just going to hit D&D on that. I recommend getting Profane Bloom right away. This will help you get through campaign and early maps stuff as quick as possible, just blasting. For your second one, really you can do pretty much anything you want. Malediction's nice just for that Malediction effect, the 10% reduced damage and 10% increased damage. Very solid. You're going to round out with Void Beacon for the Merciless Slab most likely, because you don't really need Vile Bastion until you make the switch to Chaos Inoculation, which probably isn't going to be until quite late in your character progression anyways. Void Beacon gives the minus 20 cold res, which is really nice because we are doing 100% cold damage. And of course, Vile Bastion is just amazing energy shield regen and stun immunity once you do switch over to Chaos Inoculation. Pretty straightforward there. Now we will start looking at the gear. So one thing I will mention here is that, unfortunately, like many summoners, and this one in particular, very, very gem intensive. As you can see, I'm using all the gem slots, including 2 unset rings, and I consider pretty much everything I have on there to be pretty important. So like, I don't know if you could really drop anything, so keep that in mind. You're going to need lots of gem sockets. For our main setup here, the Dancing Dervish, of course you just want to get one with as nice rolls as possible. This one has perfect rolls, and then I corrupted it to 30% quality using the Bestiary. For your links on the Dancing Dervish, you're going to want increased, for this version anyways, I'm doing crit, you're going to want increased critical strikes, increased critical damage, predator, cold penetration and added cold, and elemental damage with attacks. Very solid overall. One thing that is also fairly annoying about this, and why you need an extra gem slot compared to most minion builds, is this predator support does work for the dervishes, but annoyingly when you manifest them, since it disables the weapon, you no longer have access to that predator support gem, so you don't actually get the predator skill, the signal prey skill, to send your dervishes onto a single target. But that's very important to have for boosting their damage and knocking down enemies that are crucial enemies like invulnerability totems or keeping your minions focused on map bosses. So you actually need to use, wherever I have it, a second predator support gem somewhere, just to give you the mark prey skill so that you can send your dervishes where you want. So that takes up 1 extra gem slot. Move down to the other mandatory item, which is the Triad Grip. These 2 uniques mandatory for the build, and together these were what cost me about 20 chaos to begin with, and they will take you all the way through all the content of the game with lots of deaths in mind. You don't get tanky until you put significantly more investment into it. But you need to make sure you get 4 green sockets on your Triad Grips. That can be a bit of a pain because they do not have any evasion, no dexterity base. So you use the old crafting bench trick. You can find videos on that all over the place if you want to. But get your 4 green sockets. Down here I've got Desecrate, I've got Cyclone, and additional accuracy. This is how we proc our Dancing Dervishes. Cyclone is like the fastest hitting skill you can use, and so it will really quickly get you up to the 15 charges or whatever that you need to start Rampage and manifest your Dancing Dervishes. This is also where I've put a Precision Aura. This helps us get all the accuracy we need to always hit enemies, along with that additional accuracy gem, and of course it gives extra critical strike chance to our Dancing Dervishes. In the helmet, this is an important item. You eventually need to find a helmet that has supported by minion life if you want all of your minions to stay alive reliably and be able to fit in an Animate Guardian. So in this helmet, we're using Animate Guardian, Raise Spectre, Meat Shield, and Feeding Frenzy. Meat Shield and the built-in minion life will give your minions enough tankiness to stay alive, even though we have invested very little into minion life on the tree, because Dancing Dervishes don't need it at all. Feeding Frenzy will give you the Feeding Frenzy buff when your Animate Guardian and Spectres hit things, which makes all of your minions stronger. And you want to try and get a Divergent Animate Guardian, because the quality gives him a lot of extra life as well, which is very solid. For Spectres, you want to use 2 Frenzy Charge Spectres and 1 Power Charge Spectre. Charges are very, very powerful on minions. I can't remember the exact values for Frenzy Charges, but for example, Power Charges each give minions 200% critical strike chance, and that is how we are reaching near crit cap when our minions have all their charges up. And the reason we use 2 Frenzies and 1 Power Charge is because the Frenzies are more important for just keeping your minions fast during regular mapping, and you want to make sure all the charges are up on bosses. You only have the 1 Power Charge guy to give them a few power charges during mapping so that they can crit and freeze a little more reliably, but your Assassin's Mark that you are using will make sure that they have all their power charges up on bosses, because they hit very quickly, so they'll generate their own power charges really fast. For other gems here, we've got Generosity linked to Hatred. You don't care about Hatred affecting you at all, so just link it to Generosity and it'll make it a lot stronger for your minions. Also using Convocation so that we can bring our minions closer to us if we if they get, you know, straight off too far. Sometimes your dervishes are way off and you want them to come kill what's right next to you. Use Frost Bomb. This just lowers enemy cold resistance, and again, we're all cold damage, so extra damage there. Assassin's Mark, make sure you get the quality on it. That's what actually gives the power charge generation, so that'll keep your dervishes at high crit chance on bosses. And this is where that extra predator support is for giving you the Signal Prey skill. Down in the boots here, I've got Determination. This helps us be a lot tankier in conjunction with our Flasks, which is what lets us survive in crazy maps. Temporal Chains linked to Blasphemy. That's the curse I've chosen. I think it's really nice having everything super slow. You could use Enfeeble alternatively for another defensive option. And then we've got a Flame Dash, just to give us a little more ability if we need to dodge something quickly. Flesh Offering, of course, to go along with our Desecrate to buff our minions on bosses. And then I'm using Discipline to get a lot of bonus energy shield. If you do get plus to level of gems on either of your rings, like you can see I have +2 to level of socketed gems on this unset ring, that's where I'd suggest putting your Discipline, so that you get the extra energy shield. Alright, as far as the gear itself goes, of course we mentioned Dancing Dervish and Triad grips. Next really important thing is, ideally we get literally 0 strength or dexterity on the skill tree, and we have pretty high requirements between maxing out Determination at 155 or 158 for level 21, and Dancing Dervish requires 119 dex, so you need to get a lot of strength and dexterity on your gear. You can fill out a lot of that on an amulet. As you can see here, this amulet has a ton of strength and dexterity. Beyond that, your main goal on all of your gear is of course to get as much energy shield as you possibly can. So you want energy shield rolls everywhere. We've got it on the amulet, we've got energy shield on both rings. Pick up a little extra stats, like you can see I got more strength here to hit that stat requirement for Determination. And I have a little extra dexterity here from the 12 all attributes. I really like these 9 all-res and Minion have 12 all-res crafts on the rings. I think those are really solid for shoring up the res on your minions a little bit, because we don't get any minion res on the tree either, and that 24 between the two of them will make a significant difference in keeping your minions alive. For the body armor, I think it's also really nice if you can grab a faster start of energy shield recharge mod on there, get your things moving a little quicker. Boots, again, just movement speed, energy shield. Get intelligence wherever you can, because that's also extra energy shield, and make sure you fill out your resistances. Crystal belt here, again, just energy shield and some resistances. For the flasks, I'm using a Quicksilver, using a Basalt and a Granite flask. I've got some ignite removal on the Quicksilver. I've got just extra armor on the Basalt, reduced effective curses on you here. I'm using a Sorrow the Divine and a Life Flask together so that I still have a Life Flask I can pop when necessary if I'm not getting my energy shield recharge. Started quick enough. Not totally necessary. You could put something else in there. Fitting in a Taste of Hate somewhere would be a nice little extra bit of mitigation as well. For the Pantheon, pretty important. Soul the Brine King, you want to get that Peruna upgrade. That just gives you Cannot Be Frozen all the time. Very strong Pantheon option. And then I've also grabbed the 50% reduced effective chill on you. That would be even more important if you were using a Taste of Hate, so that that fizz taken as cold damage was not slowing you significantly. For the minor one, I've gone with Soul of Aberrath here. Burning Ground is very annoying on energy shield builds because it makes it like impossible to get your energy shield recharge started if it's damaging you in maps. And the upgrade here makes it so you're just unaffected by Burning Ground. Very solid. And the Restoration of Ignite on you is handy if your Quicksilver happens to be out of charges when you get ignited. Take a quick look at what I'm doing for the Atlas passive tree here. Basically, I wanted to focus on things that don't require me to leave maps, so I have just grabbed all the things that add juice to maps. I've got rare monsters here, just duplicates rare monsters. I've got all the stuff for shrines, pretty much. Adds a lot of extra monsters to map. I've got all the Breach stuff, I've got all the Legion stuff, I've got all the Harbinger stuff, and I've got all the Abyss stuff. So like I said, goal was just to add as many monsters as possible to regular maps and not have to leave mapping content for doing stuff like Heist and Delve, because I wasn't interested in that. Up here, just to get some more boss maps and stuff, I've got Remnants of the Past and Gaze into the Abyss. On this character, you do not want to grab Guardian's Aid. Although it's an excellently well-rounded mapper, for bosses we don't really have the tankiness or the damage to take on two at once, realistically. So I don't recommend this node. You're probably just going to wipe maps, and it is really hard to do those if they have like any mods on them. So I don't recommend Guardian's Aid. And it's kind of worthless most of the time anyways. From my past experience, it seems like that extra chance to drop their fragments is pretty darn low, so it's not really going to get you a lot of extra fragments anyways. Do whatever you want with your passive tree. I mostly just wanted to mention that on this build, you don't want Guardian's Aid, because you can't really take on 2 bosses at once very well. I think that pretty well covers everything for the build, hopefully. Again, check out the path of building if you were confused on anything, or if I missed anything. Check out the couple little boss fights I'll put at the end of the video. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe for more content. I do have one more build idea for this league that I'll probably do before I switch over to playing some Lost Ark. So I'll see you guys next time.
Races. I am meaning is everlasting fire. Beyond, there is only horror. Feel the thrill of the void. Everlasting fire. When I'm ready, I'm not ready. You will long for non-existence, everlasting fire. You will long for non-existence. Everlasting fire. I felt struggle or strangle. I'm bent. When I'm ready and not before. Temporal tears. Ultimate chaos. Struggle or strangle. Temporal tears.